We are live. Gonna go live a couple of minutes early, I reckon. So, hello. Welcome to the second episode of the live edition of Chiefsman's Corner. I'm your host, one of the commissioners of the WFL, Coach Winuvas of the New Orleans Saints. It's Wednesday night once again, so I am here to talk anything and everything WFL. We'll plug a few things in our league to look out for, talk some Week 7 action, and take questions if there are any from live viewers of the show. Once again, you can chime in on YouTube using the chat function, and hopefully I'll catch it and respond to it as soon as I see it. Thanks for watching live if you are, and thanks if you are watching this recorded version. Please give us a like and consider subscribing to give us even more presence in the Maddenverse space. We appreciate any and all support you give us. Without you, the owners of the WFL, there is no league after all. You may hear some of my cats in the background playing. I've got them everywhere, plus some feedback from the previous show, some lighting. I got some extra lighting, which will probably attract some cats at some point. So if you see some cats messing around with stuff, this is what happens in a live broadcast when you have a bunch of cats around the house. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast today, and we're going to get some housekeeping notes out of the way first. Want to first mention again our incentive plan in the WFL. This plan allows you to get some perks that aren't available for every member simply by doing some extracurricular activities that involve WFL. Anything from Twitter to articles on the Neon Sports site we use for third-party stats to commenting or participating in the show. Anything that makes WFL a more immersive experience and increases its presence in the Madden community can earn you some sort of credit. A link to the incentive plan will be provided in the description below this podcast, and the plan is also available using CouchBot commands. Check out our YouTube channel, which is what you're watching this on, for any rules breakdowns, WFL games, and our video rulebook playlists. We aim to be a destination spot for any up-to-date WFL information, so keep plugged into the YouTube channel to stay up-to-date on all things WFL. Starting with this second episode, we will officially have a Chiefsman's Corner playlist as well to go back and view back episodes, and catch the latest one if you missed it live. Please give it a subscribe and like the video so we can get more presence in the Madden space. CouchBot is what we use for announcing stream game content from our members, and we also use custom commands, including some greetings that you'll see now for WFL prospects, and also we use custom commands to find links to rules and concepts we have here in the WFL. Look at the WFL CB commands channel for a pinned message of what commands can be used. They don't need a special character in the front, and they can be used in any channel you have access to. If you aren't sure what the command does, type it in and find out. If you guys think of other things you'd like to see show up in CouchBot, please feel free to let a member of leadership or myself know. We want to create commands that you will use. They are there for your benefit. With those three particular housekeeping notes out of the way, we've got a few user versus user games to cover and talk some stats for Week 7 action. Got 4 games that are finished, one that was actually going on as I went live. But we're going to talk about the games that have already finished and gone final. First one, Packers moved to 5-2 on this WFL season. Very impressive early start for Meek Boy and the Packers as they trounced the Cowboys. 42-3 was the final score. Looks like the Cowboys got down early and abandoned any semblance of comeback and just went straight to the run game. Aaron Rodgers went 11 of 12 in this game for 144 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Jones on the ground gained 109 yards on 11 carries, 1 touchdown. Big star here, A.J. Dillon, 10 carries, 68 yards, 3 touchdowns. Aaron Jones did have a 63-yard romp probably for one of those, or for that touchdown he got. Tyrion Davis-Price got 3 carries for 18 yards. Lots of folks carried the rock for the Packers in the rushing attack. Receiving-wise, Braxton Berrios led in yards. Wide receiver, 4 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. The lone touchdown thrown by Aaron Rodgers on the day. Nothing else really of note there. Defensively, Perry and Winfrey at defensive end, 2 tackles and a sack. Zadarius Smith had a sack as well. Looks like there was also a forced fumble by Zadarius Smith, which was recovered by Perry and Winfrey and returned for a fumble 6. So lots of points scored by the Packers in this ball game, and not a lot for the Cowboys, who fall to 4-3. Dak Prescott only attempts 2 passes in this game and misses both of them. Ezekiel Elliott carries the rock 12 times for 78 yards. Ito Smith carries it 11 times for 13 yards. Not a lot of ground game to speak of. Tony Pollard did have a decent spot roll set up, but I'm guessing he may have fumbled because he only had 5 carries for 31 yards. A lot of other players touched the ball other than Tony Pollard in this game. Defensively, for the Cowboys, no sacks on the day. It looks like the leading tacklers were Jaron Kearse at strong safety and Deshaun Elliott at free safety with 3 tackles apiece, a game that the Cowboys would like to forget about as they move on to Week 8. 42-3 is a rough one to take. Next game on the docket, we have the Saints, my Saints, in a 23-17 win, holding on late to beat the 3-4 Buccaneers. Saints moved to 4-2 on the regular season, and I'd like to note this is the first user win. Unfortunately, had 3 straight games where I didn't play anybody, and got lucky with some dubs for the CPU. So this is actually the first game I've actually won behind the sticks. It did help that I had a passing game. Daniel Jones in this game went 18 of 24 for 256 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have a very, very costly pick 6. Tried to hit a guy in an out route. And a player for the Buccaneers, who I'll look up here in just a second, Ryan Neal, strong safety, made a heck of a play. Just cut the route, snagged it up, and took it home to the house for a pick 6. It was a beautiful play by the safety. I just didn't think he'd make the play, and he just snuck in and got it. So, but Daniel Jones definitely had a good game overall, other than that one interception. 2 touchdowns, engineered the offense very well. Alvin Kamara had a breakout game for me, running the ball, 14 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. Not much else to speak of on the ground other than Alvin Kamara. However, the next leading rusher was Daniel Jones with 7. So that tells you how great the ground game was behind Kamara. Receiving-wise, Deion Kane led all the receivers with 6 receptions. Did not lead in yards, though. Only had 84 yards on the day. Michael Thomas was our big boy. 3 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 77-yard romp where he beat single coverage and just out-muscled the guy for the ball and just took off for the house with nobody behind. It was a cover 0. Just beat his guy and got lucky on that one. So defensively, Pete Werner led us quite well today. 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 deflection. Josh Jones, spot safety, 4 tackles and 2 deflections, 1 key one on a 4th down to ice it late. He was the guy that knocked it down to stop them from getting a first down conversion and helping us ice the game on that one. Interception for C.J. Gardner-Johnson and a sack for Clelin Ferrell, who's been very good for us since we picked him up out of free agency. For the Buccaneers, Sam Howell had a slow game to start, but he picked it up in the second half. Finishes off 15 of 26, only 152 yards, no touchdowns, but an interception. He really led his team, especially in the third and especially the fourth quarter late. Just couldn't pick up that last yard there in the red zone. Saquon Barkley, 18 carries, 108 yards. Did not score the touchdown, though. That went to Scotty Miller on an end around, 1 carry for that 12-yard touchdown. It was a pretty good play. I didn't see it coming, and he kind of got around some blocking to make it happen. In the receiving game, Gronk got some targets late. He comes in with 3 receptions for 40 yards. Scotty Miller, however, led the day with 4 catches for 41 yards to pace that attack. Mike Evans only got 1 target, but it was a big one to get him inside the red zone to help Scotty Miller score that rushing touchdown. Saints defense was really on point in this game. Really did not allow any points. The only points the Bucs got in the first half in this game was on a pick 6. So kudos to the Saints defense for holding it down while the offense kind of got on track. For the Buccaneers defense, Ryan Neal had that pick 6 I mentioned. Also had a sack on the day. So Ryan Neal was really just a force in that Buccaneers back end. The only sack of the day of Daniel Jones came from Ryan Neal. So Ryan Neal was doing everything he could to help his boys out. Leading the tackle range was Devin White at middle linebacker, 9 tackles on the day. That's a huge amount of tackles. But luckily the Saints eke out a win and face the 49ers next week. That dude should be a very tough matchup. And speaking of that dude, we'll jump to his game real quick. Do I have his game right? Nope, that was last week's game. Never mind, sorry. Jets in a barn burner get their second win of the year, 31-28 over the Broncos, who fall to 3-4. Kobe just recently participated in a Super Bowl in another league and nearly eked out a W. We were rooting for him, but unfortunately couldn't get the job done. But good season overall for him in that other league. So as we talk about the Jets, he is killing it with Zach Wilson now. 18 of 27, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception on the day. He's starting to figure out the passing attack with the different sliders we use in this league, I believe. His run game needs some work, though. Michael Carter had 36 yards on 9 carries. Zonovan Knight had 12 carries, 36 yards. Did have a touchdown on those 12 carries, however. So figuring out the run game a little bit, but he's definitely got the passing game working in his favor. So far, his favorite target, at least in this game, was Elijah Moore. 6 catches for 101 yards. However, the only touchdown on the day goes to Corey Davis. 2 catches, 23 yards. Robert Tonyan also had 3 catches for 57 yards. Defensively for the Jets, Ashton Davis had an interception that went back for 6. Also had 4 tackles on the day. Ahmad Garner had 4 tackles and 2 deflections at corner. Looks like we had Carl Lawson had a sack and a half, and John Franklin Myers had a half a sack to get 2 sacks total for the Jets against the Broncos in a very tight contest. Unfortunately, it looks like the Broncos were did in by turnovers. 14 of 22 for young rookie Matt Corral, quarterback, 218 yards, did have 2 touchdowns, but also had those 2 interceptions I just mentioned. Javonte Williams pacing the run game with 14 carries for 55 yards. However, Matt Breida is the one that gets the touchdown in the rushing category, 2 carries for 10 yards. Receiving-wise, Noah Fant led the way with 5 catches for 96 yards, big athletic tight end. But Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, the wide receivers, are what get it done as far as getting the touchdowns. Jeudy had 3 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown. Sutton had 2 for 22 and the other touchdown. Defensively for the Broncos, Dante Jackson had a pick 6 for a touchdown. So that 1 interception that Zach Wilson threw was very costly. Baron Browning, what a name. That's an awesome name for a linebacker. Baron Browning had a sack on 2 tackles and a deflection. Matthew Ioannidis had 2 tackles and a sack from his defensive tackle spot to aid the Broncos in a tough fought, but unfortunately loss to the Jets. And I believe this is the last game on the docket. It is. This one just got played a couple of hours ago, and the Bengals moved to 5-2 with a convincing 23-9 defensive battle over the Carolina Panthers. I got to catch some of this game while it was going on live, and I must say that the Panthers are trying to figure out if Sam Darnold is the answer. I'm not sure what the question is, but they're trying to figure out if he's the answer to that question. He went 7 of 20 in this game, 78 yards, and had a rough time of it. I saw a couple of inaccurate throws from Darnold in that game. He was having a rough go of it. Christian McCaffrey couldn't do much on the ground either. That Bengals defense was pretty stifling. 9 carries, 43 yards. Chuba Hubbard had 6 carries for 18 yards. Receiving-wise, McCaffrey led the way as well. 3 catches for 34 yards. I know I've heard rumors that he is on the trade block. That would be interesting acquisition there for anybody wanting to get a top-flight running back. McCaffrey is definitely one of them. And defensively, Jeremy Chin at free safety, 6 tackles, 1 interception, 1 deflection, being a beast back there. Hassan Reddick got a sack, the only sack of Joe Burrow on the day, it looks like. And Jeremy Chin got the only pick of the day off of Joe Burrow. So, tough game for the Panthers, but new owner, learning the ropes a little bit. I feel like Ruffles will bounce back in a good way, especially once he gets to where he's facing me on the schedule. For the Bengals, Joe Burrow, I faced the Bengals already this season. Tough out, very tough out. But Joe Burrow looked like he struggled a little bit in this game. 11 of 25, 156 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception on the day. The run game, however, was going pretty well. 17 carries, 79 yards for Joe Mixon. Chris Evans gets 10 carries for 42 yards and the lone touchdown rushing the ball for the Bengals rush attack. Receiving-wise, Zach Ertz led the way with 5 catches for 77 yards, but T. Higgins is the man with a touchdown on 2 catches for whopping 8 yards. And surprisingly, Jamar Chase targeted a few times in this game but couldn't get him the rock. 0 catches in this ball game. That is something to watch going forward. Defensively, The Bengals got 6 sacks of Sam Darnold. That will definitely rattle a young quarterback or a quarterback that's struggling. DeMarvin Leal, I should say, Chidobe Awuzie, Jermaine Pratt, DJ Reader had 2, Anthony Barr. All the other ones had 1. DJ Reader had 2 sacks on the day. No interceptions of Sam Darnold, which is kind of surprising given the wildness he had. But we did see a couple of fumbles in this game. Leal recovered 2 fumbles and took one of them back to the house for 6 points. Really tough game for the Panthers. So that's a rough game. It was a really rough game. It was a defensive battle. It was 9-6, I believe, at the half when I caught it, and the Bengals just kind of slowly started to assert their dominance in the second half, and the Panthers just didn't have an answer. Hopefully they'll come up with it going forward. And now we're going to move on to the segment that I'm going this week with called Who's Hanging On? And essentially this is going to be my AFC, NFC team that's essentially keeping pace and holding the fort down. These are not teams that are leading the division or not top seeds. Guys that might be in the mid-tier, maybe on the outside looking in playoff-wise right now. But teams that are either just getting owners or getting an owner that's just coming into their groove with the team. And for my AFC side, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just got a new owner. Coach Baines has come on to take this team over. He inherits a team that had a couple of interesting decisions at the quarterback position. Had some interesting decisions at running back and some other spots. They drafted Kenny Pickett, but they also have Ben Roethlisberger still on the roster in this universe. They've picked up Teddy Bridgewater. They have Josh Rosen. They have a lot of interesting dynamics at quarterback, so they're working through and trying to figure out who's the best fit. But Najee Harris was back there, and he can run the rock with anybody, so a good running attack is always good. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster in the offseason to the Indianapolis Colts, but they still have Deontay Johnson. They still have Chase Claypool. They picked up Deontay Harris from the New Orleans Saints. They have a really good, fast, small – well, 2 of the guys are small. Chase Claypool is massive. But they have guys that can run. They can scoot. They can play ball. That's a tough threesome to guard as far as speed, catchability, that kind of stuff. And then offensive line is built to run the ball. The Steelers traditionally have always been a good run first type team. And then defensively, they always bring it with the 3-4 setup. They've got a solid 3-man front with Cameron Haywood, Stephon Tuitt, and Folorundo Fatukasi. I'm probably butchering that name. And then outside, you have TJ Watt. That's always going to help you be a stud no matter what. So no matter who's on that other side, TJ Watt's going to hopefully get pressure for you on every snap. One of the top linebackers in the league. So that defense is really, really catered to a coach that can get the most out of the defense. So if Baines can come in and get some stops on defense, which he's got the horses to do it, and can figure out this offense, I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers could be in the run potentially for the AFC North. And in the NFC, I've decided to go with, in this iteration of the universe, they're still called the Washington Football Team, but we know now they're going to be the Washington Commanders. So I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders as my NFC team to watch. Now, you may be like, well, they're 4-1 and leading their division, but the Washington Football Team doesn't have a whole lot at quarterback. I mean, they're doing this with Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke, so it's not like he's doing it with like an Aaron Rodgers or a top flight quarterback. So he's getting it done. He has Antonio Gibson. He has T.Y. Hilton playing running back for the first time in his career. He's got a couple of decent players in Will Dissly and Logan Thomas playing tight end. And it does help when you have 2 of the best wide receivers in the game in Devontae Adams and Terry McLaurin lining up on either side of each other. It's like, who do you double? I mean, do you double one? Do you double both? You can't double both, so it's pick your poison. And then, not too shabby, he's got Curtis Samuel in the slot and Garrett Wilson as your number 4 wide receiver. Tyrell Williams is your 5. This could possibly be one of the most talented wide receiver rooms in the WFL, just starting with those top 2. It's very, very top heavy, but when you line up Devontae Adams and Terry McLaurin, that's a tough duo to stop. Their offensive line is solid, not spectacular, but in this game you just need solid. You don't need spectacular. And then the defensive line is a defensive line. If you know Washington's defensive line history, they've invested a lot of draft capital over the last couple of years in those guys, so they're studs across the board. And whenever you can line up Everson Griffin as a backup, I mean, that's just monstrous. I mean, that's a situational pass rusher right there that's just still can get it done in short reps. Their linebackers aren't too much to write home about, but they're solid enough with that big, stout front four. They can make plays behind them. Secondary isn't, again, not a huge amount to write home about, but a lot of guys that are young and could potentially get better as the years go on. A couple of veterans in there like William Jackson, Landon Collins. There's some talent back there. There's a little bit of age and a little bit of youth back there. Cameron Curl's a guy I like at strong safety, 23 years old, 6'1", big guy. I like big guys. So that's my pick there for the NFC team to kind of be pulling their weight as we move on through week 7 going into week 8. I feel like the Washington football team / Commanders will be a team that'll be hanging around. They've got some competition, I will say that, because that NFC East is no slouch. You've got Dunn there with the Eagles, who once he kind of figures out the sliders and whatnot, he's always a tough out to play once he gets everything figured out. And then you have Coach Cly and the Giants, who is a hugely talented Madden guy. I've played him a couple times in another league, and he is one of the better ones out there across the board. I don't think it matters what the sliders are. He can play ball with anybody. So it's going to be tough for Waffles and the Commanders to hang on, but I feel like he's got the acumen to do it. And then we're going to go to our players of the podcast. Our AFC player of the podcast, or at least the one I picked from week 6 action, is a guy I talked about a little bit in this podcast, and that's Jets quarterback Zach Wilson. I mentioned Coach Kobe is figuring out our rule set and our slider set because we're playing on a little bit higher difficulty, and he is adjusting, at least starting to make the adjustments pretty well. Last week, he went 17 of 21 for 396 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in a 41-21 win over the Buffalo Bills. So he earns my AFC player of the podcast. And then the NFC player of the podcast is 49ers tight end George Kittle. Monster game, 11 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown, and a 31-20 win over the Raiders. A little bit more than I like to see out of tight end, but hey, when you got George Kittle, you throw him the football because he might break you if you don't. So he's basically more of a intimidation play to throw to George Kittle at that point. But George Kittle earns my NFC player of the podcast. So now I'm going to look. I don't think I have a whole lot of guys on right now, which is okay. Not complaining about that in the least, but I was going to see if anybody in the stream wanted to ask a question, but I only see one person. Hey, Meek Boy. So I don't think I'm going to hold out too long for questions. I might just kind of let it go out with that. I will say again that our incentive plan will be tagged in the description of the podcast once it finishes going live, once it's actually up and running. You'll see a copy of the incentive plan there, a link to the incentive plan there. So I think without further ado, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. We're just gonna make this a real short one. Hey, look, hey Smash, what's going on? So just seeing some guys pop in. I know I started a little early, partly because of technical issues, because apparently I've forgotten from last week how to set up a podcast. So had a couple of glitches where it started early and I didn't want to start early, and I had to hardwire my stuff in, so I had to get the wire in for that. So I butchered it a little bit, so sorry. But hopefully the lighting's better. I have a light hanging out to my side here. Hopefully the lighting's a little bit better so you can see my ugly mug a little more. I don't know why that people thought that was a good idea, but that's what they want. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it here. So basically tonight, a shorter podcast than normal because we didn't have as many games to talk about. But talked a few user games from week 7. We talked about some AFC and NFC teams that are keeping pressure on in their conferences, in the Steelers and the Commanders. And we talked about our NFC and AFC players of the podcast. So all that is absolutely left is to wrap this show up. I am Coach Winuvas of the New Orleans Saints, one of the commissioners of the WFL. I'm going to end this episode of Chiefsman's Corner, and until next Wednesday, the corner is closed.